It is podcast time.
John, what how do I say your last name?
Meadows.
Meadows. All right. Have you ever had that pronounced wrong?
Nope.
That's good.
Pressure's on, baby.
Oh yeah. Meadows. Yeah, I know I'm going to keep this open.
Good idea.
All right, let's start. I'm going to sync them up. If I'm checking this constantly, it's because every 30 minutes I have to reset it. I haven't figured out how to not reset it yet.
No, all those little ones, you have to do that. I bought a Panasonic just so it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
All the Canons and Sonys have to do a 30 minute reset.
Yeah. You download some kind of thing that fixes it, but I haven't done that yet. Anyway. All right, My Muscle Project. Welcome back to another episode. Today we're in the studio, and I reckon we've hit the maximum amount of heat and muscle that we can fit into this small square. We're joined by former guest, for only once, right? Yeah. But it's going to be many times in the future, most likely. Eugene Teo.
Hello.
And John Meadows as well, also known as Mountain Dog, and Raf's old school, long time lifting hero.
Training inspiration. I said by the time I was 25, I'd be as big as him. I'm 27, about half his size.
Well, he's getting bigger, so that's the problem.
Yeah, that's a game you're probably not going to win.
That's funny. You guys are just off the back of your muscle mechanics, I believe it's called?
No, it's just muscle camp. Muscle mechanics is my own private one. This was a joint thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So you did that for 3 days. You were in the Northern Beaches doing that. And now you're in the studio. How is that different to what we attended, Eugene?
Right. So I don't do anything that I taught to you guys in these muscle camps. These are all about training. Okay. This is all about physically. Let's put you through the workouts. Let's teach you a lot more deeper about the execution of exercises, the way that we like to set things up. A lot about where John, because John is a very, very creative and innovative person as well, a lot about his stories as to how he's developed certain movements. And it's, he was doing a lot of this, I guess, circus stuff of what you could call my stuff, but he was doing it, centuries ago when he was growing up in the gyms, and it wasn't for the gram back then because they only had stone etchings back then, but
paper. I was learning how to fight samurai.
But back then it was because he needed to do it to be not just to be innovative for business or anything like that. It was purely because he was trying to find a better way because he was going through it as a competitor, trying to build his back or trying to optimize his health as much as he can. So we use these 3 days as an opportunity to give both of our perspectives on training, on nutrition, on all the health side of things with respect to bodybuilding. Although, of course, we get many people there who aren't bodybuilders. Because it's the same thing. Like, whether you guys aren't bodybuilders, you don't have bodybuilding goals.
Just look like one.
But you do have performance goals. You do have muscle building goals and looking good naked goals. Yeah. It's the exact same thing. Yeah. Bodybuilders, like John, would just take it a lot further, but it's the exact same process. So, yeah.
And how did you guys get connected firstly, but then how did you decide you wanted to workshop together?
It's actually a very good question because I emailed John back in 2014 and was just like, hey, do you want to come to Australia? And I don't know the backstory behind as to why he said yes, because if somebody emailed me saying, hey, do you want to come across the world but I haven't been outside the country, I'd be like, fuck no.
You've never been outside the country at that point.
I think that was my first international flight. I mean, I've been in Canada, but that doesn't count.
No. Same piece of land.
I don't think I take that back. In the 90s, I went to England one time. But other than that,
wow.
I think I just had visions of kangaroo jumping around and koala bears, and I just thought I want to
drop bears.
Just go check it out, man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So that was the inspiration to join, and so that's when you first met in Australia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you do then? Like, what did you bring him out for?
So that was for John's own, because no one knew who I was back then. I was just some little Asian man.
Yeah. Your calves were more famous than your face. Still are.
Probably. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
So back then it was all about, hey, everybody come and learn from John, because honestly I want to learn from John. Like the big reason why I brought him out was because I want to learn from him. I'd spent many years reading all his articles on T Nation or on different bodybuilding forums and thinking this guy is doing something different, and not just different that's weird, but different that actually makes a big difference and works. So I wanted to learn from him. And being on my own, I couldn't afford to fly him out and pay his day rates and just sit there and hang out with him. So I needed to find a way to make that happen. I thought, okay, the next best thing would be to do a workshop so I can hang out with him. And that was it. So I brought him out, and that was also, I think that was actually a 4-day training camp back then. It was 4 days. We did a couple of days based around the off season, a couple of days based around contest prep, and John took the entire thing. I was just sitting there just like soaking it up in awe of just what was happening, because it was a big thing, like business wise or whatever it was. Inspiration for me, it was a really big thing. Like, this is awesome to be able to do that. Yeah. And that it was in essence so simple, but at the same time it was a fantastic experience. Yeah,
that's super cool. And John, I mean, for people that are listening now, they may not know you as well as they know Eugene from the previous podcast. So tell us maybe a little bit of the background yourself. You've been in the game a long time, as we just mentioned. Raf's been following you for a long time, so just give us a little bit of background to how you ended up here.
Well, it's a long story. I'll give you the condensed version.
Right,
so
I'm sure.
I actually started competing when I was 13.
In bodybuilding?
In bodybuilding. Actually stepping on a stage in little posing trunks when I was 13 years old. I've pretty much been obsessed by weight training my whole life. I've always loved it. Always loved bodybuilding. I think that's why I never stopped. You know, I'll be 47 in April, so I've been doing this a long time, but I just love it. Really enjoy it. I consider myself a student more than a teacher, trying to always learn. And, you know, through the years, I was in sports like most people that pick up weights, and I was in football, and I was in track and all these different sports. And I went to college. I originally wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon and work on knees. I was kind of really obsessed by knees too. And then I ran into chemistry and decided I was going to chill out on going to medical school. But I was in my early 20s, and I was already doing really well at bodybuilding, so I thought, this is my destiny. I'm going to be a pro bodybuilder. So I was going to one college, one university, and I had finished 3 out of my 4 years. But I just said, I'm going to make this happen. So I actually moved. I went to a different college because that other college was by the best gym I could find. Right. And, I mean, it was a good school, but I really went there because they had this awesome gym. So I went to this gym. I was in my early 20s, and there were all the big guys in Ohio, which is the state where I'm from. They were a lot of powerlifters, a lot of competitive bodybuilders. A lot of state champions were training there. And those guys kind of took me under their wing. And, you know, I already had a really good work ethic. I had, I think, a really good foundational knowledge. But they just took me under their wing, and I started doing better and better. And I thought, you know, when I was in my mid-20s, this is a piece of cake. I'm going to have my pro card. But my path actually turned out to be much different. I'd place well, but not win. I'd place well, but not win. And I had a lot of times where I said to myself, maybe I don't have the genetics, maybe I don't have the structure. I know I have the willpower, but maybe this just isn't going to happen. And then in 2005, I almost died. I had a very rare vascular disease that it almost killed me. I was in the hospital. I had my entire colon removed. And then I thought, okay, now it's definitely not going to happen. You know, now I have some major changes in my physiology, and I just, it's probably not going to happen now. Worked my way back, kept getting a little bit better. And then I started placing again. And it was like, whoa, it was almost like the carrot was being dangled in front of me again. And I just stayed at it. I continued to learn. I continued to try to improve at the best that I could be. I won my pro card. And when I won my pro card, I was into my 40s. And I had waited so long. I think I did maybe 16, 17 pro qualifiers.
Wow.
Which is a lot.
Well, with what, 16 weeks prep? 12, 16 weeks prep?
Yes.
Man,
that's a lot.
That's like 2 a year. 3 a year max.
That's a lot. So I turned pro, and I just went nuts. I was like, I've waited so long to be a pro. I'm competing in all the pro shows. So I want to say I did 5, 6, 8, 9. I did 9 pro shows, I want to say in 11 months. It was something like that. And I placed in the large majority of them. So I came out of the gate as a Masters competitor getting a pro card, and then just walked into the pro shows and started placing. So it was very rewarding for me. It felt great. It was awesome. And, you know, I haven't competed in probably a little over a year and a half, but I continue to train hard and work hard and try to stay in good shape. But Eugene will tell you, I still work hard. I'm still a little crazy in the head, and I'm not afraid to push hard. So, man, I've been doing this my whole life.
Yeah, that's cool. So you've seen like a massive evolution of bodybuilding. Like it's gone from basically a point where there's as much information as like the Arnold Encyclopedia, that's probably as dense as it got, to all the way to now where every single person on the Explore page in Instagram has an online program. Right. It's really difficult, I think, as a new person starting out in this age to find out what's like effective and what's not effective and what makes sense and who's talking shit and where the bullshit is. All you have to do is go to a Globo gym and just look at the 15 guys training. None of them look like they work out, but they're all doing something completely different. Like I saw some really weird stuff in the Globo gym the other day, like alternating like rear delt raises with shrugs in the middle and stuff. And
it's because everyone's looking at Eugene's fucking Instagram. It's fucking contagious.
Probably. But where I was going with that is saying, I bet it's been tough from a certain perspective for you to see the industry maybe go a certain direction, which probably isn't. There's probably more bullshit out there than there ever has been. How have you sort of dealt with that?
That's very safe to say. Well, there's a couple different ways of looking at it though. So when I started competing in the 80s, there was the only information you had was from magazines, except from the people who might work out at your gym. So there was a very limited amount of information that was actually out there. You just had to know somebody at your gym and have them kind of take you under their wing, like I said. And then forums started to get really big. I think in the 90s they were really cranking the forums. So there started to be this influx of information. And you would see, I used to be on this one called Professional Muscle that had some really sharp people on it. But then you would see people get on there under their fake, not even a real name, like under an alias with no pictures, proclaiming that they knew all this stuff. They knew all the drug cycles. They knew everything. And people would swarm to them like, this is the guy that's telling how it is. And it made me really nervous because I know that there's not anonymous people that know everything that people do and get on there on the internet and then tell everybody what it. Like, people don't do that. So I was like, man, this is going down a rabbit hole here. And social media came out. And then a lot more people saw that as an opportunity to get their name out there. They just really wanted to be well known. So produce a lot of information. It's very poor. So you have this overwhelming amount of information, much of which was very inaccurate. Now, the other side of that is I thought this is great for a guy like me who's been doing this a long time to share my experience with people. So I really embraced social media. I worked very hard on it because for me, it's a way to teach people. It's a way to connect with people. And quite frankly, I have fun with it too. I have a good time with it. So it gave me opportunities that I otherwise wouldn't have had. If there was no social media, I would still be just probably looking at a magazine and talking to the guy in the gym. So I'm able to connect with people all over the world now, and it's awesome. I love it. So like anything else in life, there's some good, there's some bad. I tend to focus more on the good. But I can't disagree with you on the fact that there is a lot of poor information out there. So rather than me going out there and waving a flag and saying, hey, look at me, I know everything, these guys don't know anything, I don't think that's the right approach. Number one, I don't know everything. But number two, let's just put out some good information that's helpful to people, and that's really all you can do.
So where did you find your starting point? Because obviously all this stuff, right? And you see all the poor stuff out there or whatever. How did you decide what sort of message you wanted to send? Because it's so broad, right? You could pick anything to start at. So where did you kind of think, okay, this is the gap I'm going to start with and start helping people in this area?
Well, even when I was in college, I was training people. Like even at that first college I went to, there was always somebody that said, "Hey, can you help me work out?" So of course, let's go do some workouts together. So I had that mentality, that teacher mentality, from a very young age because I very much enjoy it. If I didn't do what I do, I would love to be a teacher at a university or even little kids. I love teaching kids too. So I always wanted to have that opportunity to teach people. So when those forums got real big, I started really kind of polishing up some of my nutrition ideas, which, as Eugene mentioned, were a little different. I started to talk about grass-fed meats and the way animals are fed and how that translates to the quality of their food that you take in. I had this saying: you're not what you eat. It's you are what you eat has eaten. So I started looking at things like that, which nobody in the bodybuilding world looked at. That, ironically, they did back in the old days, but that stuff had come.
How old are we talking?
Like 50s and 60s,
right.
and 70s to a degree.
Right.
But so that's really where people started saying, hey, these nutritional ideas are a little different. Wow, this farm-raised stuff, this farm-raised fish maybe not as good as wild fish. And these meats, maybe there's a little different nutritional profile if a cow is fed this food as opposed to this food. And I got people, I think, thinking about those things when they hadn't before. And as Eugene mentioned, I really, from a training perspective, I had a lot of shortcomings in terms of my physique. So I tried all the basic stuff that everybody said works for everyone. I found out that there was no universal, thing that worked for me.
Right.
So I had to think. I had to do things a little differently. So I had some different training ideas and some different exercises and just things like that. And I think that caught people's attention too. And then it's just kind of like this momentum started to pick up. And as the momentum picked up and things got better, I just remained. I know this is going to sound boring, but I just maintained myself and just stayed me. I didn't try to develop into this persona that wasn't me. I was just me. Like, I don't have to pretend I'm somebody else. That's been my business model since day one. Just be me, just be honest with people, treat people right. And I think that people would say that I've done a pretty decent job treating people well and connecting with people. I respect people, all ages, all everything. So I think that's built a nice business foundation for me just by being a good person. When I have like a lot of young guys approach me about my business success, I'm like, oh, what's the secret?
Yeah.
Start off with trying to be a good person. If you can be a good person, that's a great starting point. Don't try to be somebody you're not. So, but this momentum had just continued to gain, and it's crazy. I'll be 47 in April, and it seems like business is at its peak and still doing well. And I'm certainly no marketing expert or no real gimmicks. Just try to be a good person and put out good information, really.
You said you had some shortcomings in your own physique. What were they, and like what helped you work on them? Because that's kind of the roadblock is sort of the answer to so many different things in life, right? So what were some of the first roadblocks you ran into?
Well, you can take a mentality of this isn't going to happen for me. I'm not going to be able to get any better. I've done the best I can. Or you can continue to try to find solutions. So a good example would have been the general shape and symmetry of my body, starting with my abs and my back. I see a lot of guys in bodybuilding, and it had these crazy V-tapers, really wide lats, really narrow waist. Guess what? That was never me. And there's nothing I could do short of shaving bone off my pelvic girdle to make that happen, to narrow my waist. So I had to, and my back was a body part that really didn't respond well. It literally took me 15 or 20 years before I felt like I was really actually training my back.
All aspects of your back?
Absolutely.
Right.
The only thing that grew easy was my traps. But everything else, my lats, my rhomboids, my spinal erectors, it was all really pretty poor in my opinion.
Right.
So I had to think, the old approach was you got to do deadlifts, you got to do chin-ups, you got to do barbell bent over rows. Well, I did a lot of deadlifts. I was actually in powerlifting. It did nothing for my lats, true deadlifts off the floor.
Wait, what's not a true deadlift?
Well,
what are we talking about?
Well, I always make that distinction because rack pulls actually I think are good for your back.
Right.
But back then there was like nobody did rack pulls.
Right.
You had to pull off the floor. But that just turned into a lower body exercise for me with some trap. And then the barbell bent over rows is like, well, this is a great isometric contraction for my spinal erectors, and I get a lot of arm work.
Yeah.
But it's doing nothing for my lats. Chin ups are great, but I'm so fat I can't do too many of them. So
that's why they got bands.
Yeah, well, they didn't have bands.
Yeah, probably.
Bands, by the way, are an awesome tool. Bands and chains, I talk about those a lot. But just had to use different exercises, just had to find some other exercises that worked. And I found some that I think were pretty effective. But, there was always there's this challenge, like, we're all perfectionists that are kind of deep into bodybuilding. You don't even need to be deep into bodybuilding to be a perfectionist. It's just kind of how your mind works. But So I always just looked at these problems and I tried to figure out solutions to fix them. I was never one to kind of just throw in the towel and say, well, I'll never have calves, or well, I'll never have this, or well, never. No, this is a challenge. Let's figure out how to overcome it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you took a slightly different approach. How do you feel like you distinguish your approach? Like if I was to do a training session with you, like what would I expect to be different if like we were, say, training back, for example?
Well, number one, the difference is intensity. I think there's a general lack of intensity in training effort these days.
Oh yeah.
And sure. I've seen it, through 3 decades. I've seen it. There's a different mentality in the gym. If you do, like Eugene and I trained this morning, and we did one exercise where we finished with a drop set with some partials, like just crazy difficult set. We went to another exercise where we got as many reps as we could. It was like 8, and then we stopped. We took 20 seconds. We did another 6. Took another 20 seconds, did another 4 or 5. Those are hard sets. That's the way I like to train. And if you ask 99% of the people out there about that kind of training, they'll say, oh, it's too much. It's too much. He's overtraining. He's doing too much. I think there's this irrational fear of overtraining. I don't think people put in the work. I always say you never know where the line is until you cross it a little. Yeah. In the camp Eugene and I had this weekend, we took people right to the line, maybe a little bit over it. But people were like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. Like, I didn't know I had that in me. And when you do a camp like this, or when you're a coach, one of the most rewarding things is when somebody looks at you and says, man, I didn't know I could do that. Like, wow, that's unbelievable. I'm like, yeah, man, a lot of this is so mental. It's where can you take yourself? And that's true in all aspects of life. Not just in the gym. So, the biggest thing for me, if you talk about my training, it's going to be really, really hard. It's going to be very intense. And it's probably going to scare a lot of people. That's okay. But, I'm also in this 30-some years. So there's something that I've done right in terms of longevity. And I believe that there's a way to program that ensures much better longevity. Going into the gym and doing heavy bench presses every time you go in there is probably not a good idea for your connective tissue. You're probably going to injure yourself. So I try to construct my programs in a way that would contribute to longevity. So if you want to train 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or however long, the programs are built in a way that you don't destroy all your connective tissue, your soft tissue. You work hard. Like I was saying, we worked hard, but we did nothing today that would hurt your connective tissue. We did nothing that would destroy your knees, nothing that would destroy your hips when we were training legs, but our hamstrings and quads were demolished. And I think there's a little bit of an art to that. And I think that's really been something I think I'm pretty proud of, is to incorporate that element of longevity into building a training plan. So, that's kind of another thing that comes to mind. Exercise sequences might be a little different if you're working with me compared to just kind of the standard template that you'll get in the industry.
You mean like a weekly template?
Yeah, like if I say, here's how we're going to train our chest. A typical, well, let's say a back workout, for example. Typically people are going to do, they're going to do a pull down, they're going to do a bent over row, they're going to do a deadlift. And I'm not saying those are bad exercises at all, but I might have that look a little different. I might change it up a little differently. I might have you throw in some chains on the deadlift. There's all kinds of things I might do that's a little different. It's not for the sake of just being different. I think that there are ways that you can make exercises more productive. And I think there are sequences that work better. Like, for instance, if I had somebody come in and they want to train their legs, I would never have them start with lunges.
Why is that?
Because I think it's too hard on your knees. I think going straight into the gym and doing like lunges, particularly heavy lunges, I think it's really hard on your knees. I'm not talking about body weight lunges; those aren't.
Yeah.
But just to go into the gym, and like a heavy hack squat, just to go into the gym and just walk in, load up the hack squat, do a couple warm-up sets, and go real heavy, I think it's probably pretty hard on your knees. But what about when you've already done a lot of leg presses? What about when you already have a lot of blood in your hamstrings? That lunge feels very different than when you're cold. You're not even going to feel it in your knees. So you can really think about the muscle instead of your joints hurting. Same thing with the hack squat. Well, what if you're doing that third? Then the hack squat, now all of a sudden it feels a lot better. So I think there's sequences that you can incorporate along the way that help your body feel better, that really put more stress on the muscle instead of connective tissue. You'll never see me doing a bench press first. I won't do it. I just think that it's going to work better second or third, probably second in your routine. And a lot of people will go in, the first thing they do for chest is I got to get my heavy bench presses in. And that's the first thing they do. That's not my style. You can get away with it when you're a little bit younger, but that's a game that's going to come back to haunt you. I mean, and particularly because all everybody talks about is progressive resistance. Like, you got to get stronger, you got to get stronger, you got to get stronger. I'm like, it's great to get stronger. You should always work to get stronger, but you're not going to get stronger every workout you do for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that pursuit of numbers, it can come back to bite you. That's a good setup for an injury. When you want your numbers so bad, maybe you change your form a little bit, or maybe you just try to get that extra rep and you don't feel right. Like, that's a dangerous game. So, anyways, those are just kind of some thoughts off the top of my head.
Do you think the more advanced you get in your training, the more that applies? So, like this, if you're like, I'm getting really, really strong on my deadlifts, now I can start to do all this other stuff before my deadlifts, before I get in there, because the weights are getting heavy now.
Well, and the interesting thing too is technique becomes so important. Technique becomes incredibly important. And, as you get older, I believe that you probably need less sets because you're better at execution. I think I could probably get more out of 2 sets of something now than I could get out of doing 4 sets of that same thing when I was younger. So I think you get better. I think you get more precise. I think you think about your form a little bit more. You really, because you can tell. Like, ignorance is bliss. So many, many years I trained my back, and if you ask me, are you having a great back workout? I would say, yeah, I'm working really hard. But then 10 years later, it's like, what I was really doing was I was going through the motions. And now that I feel how my back should work, now I can tell, like, okay, those back workouts it was moving weight, but it was going through the motions. And I think as you get older and you get more experience and you learn how things feel, you get better at saying, that wasn't a quality set. Like, that just wasn't right. And those things click in your mind that you may not have when you don't have as much experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like you want to, like the more you're in it, the more you kind of distinguish the different muscle groups. You can tell the difference during a set when you're in or out of positions. And I think that the most important factor that is quite obvious is just the amount of weight that people use. It's because they get to a certain point with such shit form, and to take it back and go lighter, they're not really willing to do it. And that's obviously like a huge error for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I wanted to ask you a question around YouTube. How long have you been doing it now?
Well, I started the channel like in 2010, and what I did was I was putting like 10-second clips on there of exercises I was doing. Because what I was doing was in my training programs, I noticed nobody else was putting YouTube links in their training programs. So somebody might tell you to do an exercise, but what if you didn't know how to do it? So I started making the shortest possible. I figured people's attention spans are really short, so I started making the shortest possible videos I could, like 8-second video. And because I would put the links in my training programs. But maybe 2 years ago, a little bit less than that, I thought, wow, this could be a great tool to use. So I took a different approach and put more videos out, but there's more explanation now. There's more description. There's exercise index videos that they went from being 8 seconds, now they're 2.5, 3 minutes, just with some more explanation for people to understand. So now it's more educational. And the other thing is I put just a lot of workouts in there. Just general workouts. I've probably got hundreds of workouts on there.
Yeah.
So someone says, okay, you've got on here, I just saw this program. It says 3 sets of 10 here, 2 sets of 8 here, and then 3 sets of 15 here. Well, how does that actually look in real life when you're training? Because that could be interpreted, like I could look at that and I'd say, oh, that looks easy. But the execution of it, if you do it right, may be very, very challenging. Like, I'll give you an example. Today we did 1 set of leg curls, 1 set of hack squats, 1 set of inverted leg press, and 1 set of leg extensions. Most people listening is going to say, a piece of cake. Was it a piece of cake?
I'm still traumatized from that experience. I'm glad we're sitting down right now.
Yes. So, I mean, there's a big difference in how you can interpret stuff. So I thought YouTube, man, this is a great way to show people not just educational stuff, because there's so much educational stuff now. And I think people are kind of shifting so much toward that, they're forgetting about the intensity. So I want people to see the intensity, what it takes, in addition to the education. Because the education is great, But if you don't know how to train hard, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck reaching your goals. I mean, I can sit here and I can try to impress you with big words. Hey, let's turn your mTOR on. Let's get your actin-myosin 5. The bridge is strong so we can produce force. But what does that really mean to you? It doesn't mean anything. But if I say, okay, let's get on this leg press. I want you to squeeze out 8 reps. Then when you think you can't do anymore, we're going to do another 2. Then you're going to rest for 20 seconds. And I know you have it in you to do 6. And you barely do that. And you're amazed at how hard you work. That's what it's all about to me.
Yeah, and then if people are doing that sort of intensity, can they train every day? Or would you recommend that they do more intensity and less volume, or less sessions in the week?
Well, no style of training works forever. There's always going to be times you have to change things, and everybody has a very different recovery capacity. Some people can tolerate really heavy loads. Some people can tolerate higher volumes. Some people can tolerate higher intensities. And this is where it's very individual centric. The principle of individuality kind of overrules all the stuff we talk about.
Yeah.
Everybody's a little different. So I like for people to learn how to work really hard first. And then when they understand what I expect of them in terms of their effort, then we can try to find the right volume for you, the right amount of training frequency. Do we train your arms every 3 days, or do we make it every 2 days, or we make it every 4 days or 5 days? That's when you kind of start fine tuning and figuring out. But the fundamental principle though is hard work. And once we get that established, now we can start worrying about the other stuff.
It's almost like, if you take, I'm sure there's young guys that approach you for coaching, right? They go, I want to be the next, who's Phil Heath, right? Or whoever the next guy is. And they want your guidance. And that's probably what you tell them, right? The hard work thing. Outside of that, assuming that they do work hard, they've gotten to a satisfactory intensity level for you, what else makes up the future of, the next generation of bodybuilders or best physiques?
Oh, so many things, like genetics. Some people just don't have the genetics that other people have. Some people can get away with terrible training, with terrible eating, and they look awesome. Some people can do everything what seems to be perfect, and the gains are very slow. So genetics is a big part of it. Response to drugs is a big part of it. Some people respond really well to taking drugs. Some people don't. Some people, whether you take drugs or not, natural versus unnatural, there's a big difference in recovery and protein synthesis there. So there's a genetic component. There's a drug component. There's all kinds of components. And when the stars align and you kind of have all that working for you, that's when you got an elite person. The elite people have elite genetics. They can respond to just about anything. Training-wise, nutrition-wise, drug-wise. Maybe they don't stress out as much as other people. They tend to be a little calmer. And the further you get away from those good responses, that kind of makes it harder for you. So that's kind of what I think. I think that's really what makes the big difference. I think there's many people that train their butt off. I think they train harder than the top Olympians, but they're not even pros. It's not because they're not training right. There's just components. Like, wouldn't it be nice if we could all just go play basketball, and the more we practice, the more. Hey, Eugene, we're pretty tall, right? Let's just go play basketball for 10 hours a day. For a dwarf. Let's just go play basketball for 10 hours a day. And in a year, I think we'll be ready for the NBA, because it's just hard work and practice, right? No, there's a genetic component to this stuff,
Yeah. There's also we sort of briefly touched on it earlier, that there's that lifestyle piece that goes along with it as well, with bodybuilding. And some people interpret how much they need to embrace that lifestyle, if it even is the correct lifestyle for bodybuilding, on an individual basis. And what I mean by that is being antisocial, bit of a recluse, bit of a robot. It almost is you don't really know if that's the lifestyle you need to be that good until you kind of do it, and you pursue the sport a little bit and you go down certain paths. I guess what's your sort of interpretation of that side of things? Do people need that hardcore bodybuilding, don't speak to anyone, headphones, full hoodie?
I have strong feelings on that. That's a load of BS, man. That's a load of crap. I don't know where it started. I don't know if it's from people watching Pumping Iron or what, but at some point people thought that you just need to go into a room and lock yourself in the room. I don't buy that. You go, you eat your food. When you go to the gym, you train hard. So what does isolating yourself from other people do for you positively? I just don't see it. I used to hear people say, you can't work a job and be a pro bodybuilder. Another absolutely stupid idea that somehow got perpetuated. And the reality is, I think most bodybuilders were probably just lazy. They just didn't want to work a job.
Yeah.
That's the reality. And I've always had a little bit of a hard time respecting the people that were like that. You know, part of it was because I did work jobs. I always had a job, and you know, sometimes they were corporate jobs, but I did some very hard, difficult jobs too growing up when I was training. I used to run a jackhammer, and then I would finish my day at work and I'd go to the gym and train. My forearms would be numb from holding that thing.
Fuck.
I worked in a wood mill once. I'd go into the gym with green stuff all over my clothes from the wood dyes from the wood. So I'm going to the gym afterwards. So I think people in the 80s and 90s particularly were always like, oh, you can't have a job to be successful as a bodybuilder. I'm like, sure you can. Why not? So I think people just like to use that as an excuse to, you know, to be a social recluse or whatever. But I think it's just insane. And I think if people just opened up their minds and tried to put a little bit of work into maintaining their relationships, they would actually find that their life is less stressful, which would lead to better results. It's hard to tell people that, though, because there is a point. You do have to be focused, for sure. But being focused is, like I said, you focus when you're eating your meal, I guess. You focus when you're training, but what about the rest of the day? There's still a lot of time the rest of the day where you could do other stuff. You could do something with your friends. You guys could go out and see a movie, whatever.
Yeah.
You could do whatever. You know? So I personally don't buy that. I think you can be incredibly focused and still have a life. That's just what I think.
Yeah. I think the flexible dieting movement, like obviously it's been around for a while, but the popularity of it through things like social media and YouTube and stuff actually helped a little bit with that, because then it didn't become about chicken, broccoli, and brown rice. It became about, oh, you know, I can go out and like save my calories and smash this pizza, or like have this ice cream with my friends. And it probably took more of those sort of people out back into society.
Well, I personally,
because they were gone for a while.
I mean, I pretty much love flexible dieting. So, you know, you're preaching to the choir with me. I liked it. In the 80s and 90s, there was no such thing as flexible dieting. And we ate everything plain. Like, you're going to put water on your chicken? No, you boil that stuff, man. You're going to put water on your rice? No. Yeah, it was.
You boil it.
Yeah.
You want water in your broccoli? Boil it.
Straight, no sodium, no toppings. I mean, it was straight cans of tuna. I've dieted before for 12 weeks when I ate was tuna, lettuce, and an occasional sweet potato. I mean, it was brutal.
Fuck.
And then somewhere along the line, that flexible dieting stuff came along, and I remember the first time I tried it, I went a little overboard.
With the flexible part.
Didn't quite work out as well as I thought it would.
Forgot the dieting part. This is real flexible.
Yeah, all I heard was the word flexible. So that equated to lots of strawberry yogurt, and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Well, a few Reese's Pieces didn't hurt anything. I mean,
mix it up.
Okay, let's have another. That wasn't bad. Okay, well, shoot. I did it for meal 5. Might as well do it for meal 6. Yeah, I think flexible dieting has been a good thing. I think it's, I agree with that. I think it's been good. And it allows you, like when you have a family like me too, it allows you to function as a family, at least have meals together here and there and do things, and which I think it can make society a better place, right?
Yeah.
So.
And how does the pointy end of a show go with all this social stuff, with the stuff you just mentioned, with the family and that? Because, I think it's year round, it's probably a lot better now, but obviously when you're dieting down and you're super low on energy and all the time, you know, things are a little bit harder to manage emotionally and energy wise. How have you managed that over however many shows you've done in, you know, that point where you're so dieted down that you don't really feel like doing much except just sleeping?
Man, I've been there so many times, competed over 60 times, and I could tell you story after story of some very, very brutal diets that I've done. And it is challenging. And physiologically, there are a lot of things going on that kind of turn you into another person if you're not careful. I was never what I would say mean or angry, but what hit me was fatigue. Like, I just wanted to sleep. And the challenges that I had, you know, when I was single, it didn't matter. I could just lay down and take a nap. But once I had a family, it was a little different. So I would be three weeks out, and I couldn't stay awake. You know, it's like I have kids, I have a wife, and I'll eat my food, and then I'll just disappear and fall asleep. And, you know, everybody's like, where's Dad? And then I'd come back out, eat a meal, and go back to sleep again. And it was creating some tension. It was creating some problems. You know, my wife said, you know, I don't care if you compete or not, but you're not going to not be a dad. Like, you can't just take off being a dad. So I was like, yeah, that sounds like pretty good advice.
Seems like the right thing.
Seems like the right thing to do.
I'll sleep on it.
Hey, I'll get back to you now. I can take a nap. So, you know, for me, it was like communication. I told my wife, I said, well, actually, no, she told me. I didn't tell her. But she was like, why don't you just tell me when you're tired? And then when you wake up, when you have some energy, tell me when you feel good so we can do something together with the family or whatever. I was like, wow, communication. That's a cool idea. So that's what we did. I'd say, man, I'm really suffering. I'd be 2 weeks out suffering. I said, can I please take a nap? You know, she's like, yeah, just go take an hour nap. And then I'd wake up. I'd feel a little better. She'd be like, okay, now let's, you know, go out and play with the kids. They've been wanting to play such and such with you. They keep telling me, hey, when will Dad play football with us? So go out and do that. Once we started communicating at the very basic level of just simply talking about what was going on, everything got better. And actually, that's when I got my pro card and everything started really going even better for me, was when those things kind of started ironing themselves out. So, and then it got even better. Then I started taking them on my trips with me when I competed. And I would say I need to be really focused. You know, we're going to get there on Wednesday. I need to be really focused. I need to get my meals in. I need to rest. I need to do all this weird stuff, this posing and all this shaving crap. But then when it's over, we're going to stay and we're going to have like a mini vacation. So I started taking them with me. I took them to Alaska. My kids have actually been in 5 different countries already, and they just turned 10 years old. So then it became fun. Then my kids are like, when are you going to compete again, Dad?
Yeah.
You know, because they were having a great time.
Y'all were eating the fucking tuna and lettuce every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it turned out to be a pretty cool thing. And, you know, the majority of the last 10 shows, I've probably taken them with me. Probably 6 out of the last 7. I took them with me, and it turned out to be a really good experience. And so for my kids, someone asked me the other day, like, if your kids could talk about you competing, would they like it, not like it? And I think my kids will say, yeah, we like it when Dad competes because we get to go do fun things. So they're not going to look back someday and go, oh, Dad was a butthole. He was really mean. He ignored me. Which is important to me. That's extremely important to me. So, you know, that's kind of how it evolved.
I'm going to cut you off because I found so interesting is that, so John got his pro card 2015. So that was around when you started realizing, like maybe 2014, how important the communication was. And you'd been competing, obviously, for a very, very long time since before then. So it took you, I don't even, how many years would it have been to take you to realize how important communication was? And do you think that's really missing a lot from most competitors, most athletes in any sport? Like it could be CrossFitters, you know, it could be any endeavor where they don't realize the impact that it's having on those around them and how to communicate effectively. And that's might be what's leading to that, like social isolation or the hardcore.
People don't understand me.
They don't
understand my grind.
Yeah, it's not my they're not grinding, like hustling enough. You know, you don't understand me.
It's like people always call me obsessed, but it's driven.
Yeah, it's just dedicated.
Yeah, you're just not talking to them.
But do you think that's missing a lot, like in
It's because
awareness?
People are selfish. It's because, and then look at the way social media is now. It reinforces that. Look how important I am. Look how important I am. That stuff's not real. But I think it's just there's an element of selfishness where people only think about what's going on for them. They don't think about what's going on for the other person, and you're going to end up in a bad place when that's what's guiding your life and then your thought processes. Like it's not going to end well for you. So yeah, I mean, Eugene, I think that there's just a lot of selfishness. People who can't see kind of the world outside of their own sphere. And when you can get better at that, your life will get a lot better. But I don't necessarily think it's getting better. I think it's probably getting worse. I think social media is kind of reinforcing this, I don't know what the word for it is. It's just this, I'm so important. I'm just, only thing that, people assume the number of followers equals how successful you are now. How corny is that? I mean, that's the corniest shit I've ever heard. So, but that's what it's turning into. And, I think people are always asking me, why don't you do collaborations with person A, person B, person C? I don't particularly like person B. I don't want to do a collaboration with somebody just to get followers when I don't particularly particularly like them. Why would I do that? You know, if I like them, yeah, we'll work together. You know, you and I work together. Yeah, I respect you. I like you. You're an awesome person. But I'm not just going to go do it to get 10,000 followers. Screw that, man. That's not even been a real person. That's just been a fake. You know, I mean, look at it this way. Like all the social media apps that'll automatically like pictures for you. And I caught somebody doing that in my company. Behind my back was doing that with one of our Instagram sites. I was like, what the hell is this? Oh, it's going to build our following. It's building smoke and mirrors. It's building crap is what it's building. There's no real interaction. Anyway, so that's kind of going off on a tangent there. But I think when you can empathize with other people, when you can see their perspective and you can forget about yourself, or God forbid, for 1 minute out of the day, I think when you can do that, things work out a lot better for you.
It's definitely tough. There's a lot of well, because we spend so much time on our phones now, I think I watched a video the other day. We're averaging 4 hours now a day. This is society in general. I would say a large part of that is Instagram, Netflix, viewing other people's lives, YouTube, that sort of thing. It is hard because people are gravitating towards just straight entertainment and less education. It's far easier to click on something in Netflix that doesn't really educate you. It just entertains you for the time. So people are just losing themselves in like smoke and mirrors, right?
I love to be entertained too. I watch funny stuff. There's a guy named Juji Mufu that, you guys know him?
Oh yeah, we had him on.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
I love that guy. John is he's an awesome dude.
Yeah.
I love entertainment too. I just don't like it when people have these fake personas. And, you know, I'll go to these expos and I'll see somebody that I know has 2 million followers and go up, you know, hey, how you doing? Shake their hand, and like, just the way they're treating people around them. Like they're just how you treat people to me is a very important thing. So I get what you're saying. And actually, I can't remember the demographic. I want to say from ages 18 to 45, that demographic watches more YouTube now actually than TV.
Yeah.
And I watch a lot of YouTube. I'm always watching poker stuff, but
everyone's got their.
You've had to say some kind of bodybuilding stuff.
No, I watch poker stuff. I watch every once in a while. I'll start watching Mortal Kombat stuff because I was always a big Mortal Kombat fan.
Yeah,
the video game, the new one's coming out. It looks really bloody and gory, by the way. So I do that too. But you know, it's just because I like this. I don't want to say that like every video should be educational.
And of course not.
That's kind of silly to expect that. I'd love to be entertained too.
Yeah.
I just wish people would like not take themselves so seriously, and you know, I've dealt with a lot of these personalities.
Yeah. I was gonna say, over the years you would have seen so many. Well, have you seen a lot of people change that you've known for a while due to them getting popular on Instagram or social media, just in general?
No.
Okay.
Because I pick my friends very carefully.
Okay. All right. That's good.
I'm sure a lot of people have changed.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer in putting the right people around you. And every once in a while I strike out and I mess up. But generally speaking, one of the few skills I have is knowing who are good people and who are not good people. So I don't necessarily have that skill when it comes to business, but I have it when it comes to picking my friends.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, but I'm sure that happens with a lot of people. They get that little taste. And if there's some insecurity in them, it kind of fills that insecurity. It's kind of like drugs and bodybuilding. People like talk about how drugs change somebody, and I've always been a big believer. It just brings out who you are even more. If you're a nice person, taking a shot of testosterone isn't going to turn you into a bad person. If you're, you know, and vice versa. So I just think, you know, maybe your emotions get a little amplified. But people are who people are. You know, it comes down to how you were raised, what your thought processes are, provided everything's firing upstairs in your brain correctly anyway. So.
Just on the topic of drugs, your kids are exposed to a very unique environment. Going to bodybuilding shows, their dad's a pro bodybuilder. Not many kids can say that, right?
Yeah.
At some point, it's probably going to be a discussion you have to have with them, right?
It's going to hit them. They're not going to keep just getting bigger and bigger, and at 21, be like your size.
Yeah.
I'm going to slip some anadrol into when they're 16 years old, like, Dad, I gained 5 pounds last week.
So how do you envision having that conversation, or like, how would you like that conversation to happen when it does happen?
I've been asked that question several times, and that is an awesome question. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I make my kids watch Rocky IV. Okay, I make them watch it every once in a while. And you remember when they give Ivan Drago the shot?
Yeah.
They're like, Dad, what is that? And up to this point, I've been lying to them. I've been telling them it's a painkiller.
Yeah.
I've been saying it's a painkiller so he can't feel pain when he's training, so he can train harder. At some point, they're going to be like, they're going to use the S word. And we're going to have that discussion. I don't know. I know it's coming. I don't know I know I'm not going to lie to them in terms of what I've done personally. But there it is. I know it's coming, man. I don't know how I'm going to answer that, dude. You're putting all kinds of pressure. I'm going to have a heart attack on the way home.
I'm sure you'll handle it fine. So what was it for you personally, if you're telling them about your personal journey? Like, what pushed you over the line? How did you make the decision? Because obviously it's not an easy decision for anyone that gets into lifting. Everyone faces it at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned I started training early age. I was 12 when I started training. And I was very anti-drug. I was the guy that said if you take a shot of testosterone, you're going to have a heart attack the next day. If you take a D-ball pill, your liver's going to explode within a week.
You're saying that at 13?
That was me. Like, I was dude, like when I got in my Muscle and Fitness magazine, the first section I opened up was the kinesiology section. I wanted to understand the origin and insertion of every muscle, the nerve innervation. When I was in high school, like, I probably could have taught anatomy. In fact, I know I could have. But I was that way with all aspects of bodybuilding. The thing was, there wasn't that much information on drugs. There was a book called Death in the Locker Room by a guy named Bob Goldman that basically was like, you guys are all going to be Lyle Alzado and die. That was kind of the big story. There were a few steroid handbooks that were out there, but I didn't see them. So all the way up through my teenage years, I was very anti-drug. Now, when I got to high school, I was playing football. I was about 185 pounds, and I squatted 500 pounds in high school. I was natural. I'd never taken a drug.
Jesus.
And my football coach was like, I know you're taking stuff. There's no way you could do that naturally. And I was like, no, I'm very anti-drug. Like, no, I'm not. I actually had a problem with my high school football coach because he didn't believe me.
Right.
And I was like, man, I've been busting my ass trying to get stronger. And once I hit my early 20s, there's those handbooks. It's like I started really reading them like, man, maybe this isn't as bad as I thought it was if you can just have some sense. But that's still really not what made the decision for me. What ultimately made the decision for me was the realization that to be a pro bodybuilder, I couldn't do it naturally. That was the realization. And then it was, how bad do you want to be a pro bodybuilder? And just being up front with you guys, I wanted to be a pro bodybuilder very bad from a young age. So I was like, oh, I'll do it. Like, I'll do it. I'm going to try to be intelligent about it. So I really worked hard on educating myself. How can I avoid side effects? How can I stay healthy? And so forth. But for me, it was just, at some point I realized, and this is where I think people need to be very honest on like social media. Like, you cannot be a pro bodybuilder natural in the IFBB. You can't do it. Maybe for a little teeny tiny guy and you win the bantamweight class at nationals, you can. But to be a light heavyweight, a heavyweight, a super heavyweight, that ain't happening naturally. It's just not. And I still have people message me all the time. Hey, I'm natural. Can I be a pro bodybuilder? I'm like, no.
Even natties can't even win natty shows anymore.
Can I be a natural pro bodybuilder? No, not a chance.
Well, on a lot of those shows, you can't detect growth hormone. People can take testosterone suspension that clears quickly. I mean, anytime there's a test, there's a way to beat the test. So, saying that a lot of those natural shows are truly all naturals is kind of misleading too, honestly.
No, I don't think there's any point. If you just in bodybuilding, just go for it. Yeah. You're putting all this extra work in, just speed up the process. Yeah. So you went down that path, and then you educating yourself. You wanted to do it safely. Is that, you feel like that is the most important thing with all people, is because there's a lot of run and gun out there, and like you said, forum stuff, and it's individualized and it's all different. So is it, well, for you, maybe it was a matter of kind of self-experiment and figuring it out. When people kind of walking that path these days themselves, I don't have the experience with it, but what is the path most people usually go down? Is it like dark web or guy in the gym, or like how can they do it safely so that they don't cause themselves any damage?
Yeah, there used to be this culture where we all talked about it at the gym in the 80s and 90s. And then it became a stigma where, like, if you took testosterone, then you're a cheater, you're this and that. You don't have to work hard. You take a pill and then you can become a bodybuilder, which we all know is not true. So this stigma happened. I mean, it was okay for females to take hormones when their hormones were having issues, but if a male wanted to take a little testosterone, that was taboo, right? So, I mean, what I tell people is, in a perfect world, I would love to see you work with an educated doctor. Not all people have access to one, but it's getting harder and harder to convince me they're not available because there's so many clinics that pop up everywhere. I'm not sure here in Australia if you guys have these longevity clinics. Are they pretty big here?
I don't
Just starting very slowly.
Dude, they're massive.
It's
in
questionable.
The US. They're massive in the US.
Trying to get one to sponsor the podcast.
Yeah. There's none in Melbourne?
There was a couple at one point.
All right.
A good maybe 5-ish years ago. I think at least one of them shut down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, they're getting into the squirrely stuff. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they can legally, if they have the right blood work, and it shows certain things, they can legally prescribe certain things. Mm-hmm. So I was very fortunate because one of the best doctors in the world is a friend of mine, and I met in 1999, and he's watched me like really closely for 20 years now. I have a stack of blood work. It's literally probably this big, just from test after test after test. So ideally, in a perfect world, you can get a doctor to work with you. You know, okay, let's monitor your blood pressure. Let's look at your kidney function. Let's look at your liver function. You know, let's look at your hematocrit and your RBCs. Let's make sure you're not putting too much pressure on your heart. That's the best way to do it, because then you're not just guessing. Like, well, I feel good. Well, just because you feel good may not mean things are good. You don't know. And everybody has a varied response. Like if you said to me, what would 300 milligrams of test a week do to me? I don't know. I have no idea. You might blow up. You might gain 15 pounds. You might gain 3 pounds. I don't know. Everybody has a different response, not just in a good way, but in a bad way. Some people can't take much. Some people can take a lot. There's probably something that can be said for some of the top bodybuilders, their body's ability to tolerate large amounts of drugs and not get sick, right? So, but, you know, there used to be, everything came from Mexico. I'm speaking from the United States.
Right.
You know, I could tell you some cool stories. Like, there were guys, I had a friend that, he wasn't really a friend, but he was a friend at the time, but he had a station wagon, and he had a fake gas tank in it. So he'd drive to Mexico, he'd go to Tijuana, he'd buy all the drugs he could, he'd put them in the fake gas tank, and he'd drive them back. That's how we all got our testosterone. And the laws, like, around Europe and, like, all around the rest of the country were actually pretty loose. You know, a lot of people in the United States got stuff sent in from, you know, France had the real true parabolin back then. The
French,
the trend, the good on the Frenchies.
They don't use it themselves.
So they should have used it themselves. But there's just different countries. I remember Belgium had these ampules with skulls and crossbones on them. It was Masteron, actually. It was awesome. It was so cool. But laws started changing. A lot of things they quit making it. They went out of production. Laws changed. Now it's very, very difficult. So what that did was that created a demand. So now you had people importing raw powders from China and making it in their basement. So then you see a lot of people with infections and getting fevers, and some people have had massive surgeries to get stuff cut out of them. Just horrible. And that's what it has turned into. But now that has kind of given rise to these anti-aging clinics. So these anti-aging clinics is where a lot of people are going to because they can do this legally. And obviously, if you want to do this legally, that is the way. I mean, that's what I would advise, do it legally. And quite frankly, that's the route I went down many, many years ago. So I didn't want to have any problems, you know, losing my family, for example. So, like, if I'm going to take my testosterone, I'm going to have a legal prescription for it, and I'm going to take it legally under the advice of a physician. So, but it's been interesting to watch. There was all these awesome drugs that were available in the 80s and 90s legally. Laws changed. Then the scene got real seedy and people started making kind of basement stuff. It was really crappy. And now it's kind of changing. Now we got these clinics coming in. So it's been interesting to watch the changes through the years.
And did you, like, at any point during the 20 years, did your doctor actually intervene in a way that was like, man, thank God I had a doctor, or thank God I had a physician? Or was it more just monitoring the whole time just to make sure you're safe?
For me, I've had some things get out of whack, but nothing ever was alarming. Just being honest with you, nothing was ever. I mean, there were a couple times on my CRP, my high sensitivity CRP, which is a measure of inflammation in your body. There were a couple times when that got up a little bit, but for the most part, everything is pretty reasonable. I mean, you could see changes, like when I was doing things, when I was not doing things, but it wasn't anything radically different.
Is that also because you were taking kind of a much more sensible amount than everyone around you because you were working?
Absolutely. I mean, I had a kid message me the other day, and he's like, I'm getting ready to do my first cycle. How does 1,000 milligrams sound for a week? I said...
1,000 of what, sorry?
A test.
Yeah.
I said, you can do that. I said, I've never done that personally. I said, if you think you need that. And he goes, well, Coach X told me that I should do that. That's where you start at. And I said, look, man, do what you want, but I'm telling you, I've never done that in my life. So I think what people think, and this goes back to the forums and social media and all this stuff, what people think is needed is so over the top as to what is really needed. So
people think more is better, right? So
people think more is better, and that's just kind of the mentality of somebody who wants to just do something overnight real quickly. So let's just see how quick we can get there. And then, we've seen people die in bodybuilding in the last 5-10 years. You've seen a lot of people die, and some of them were young. And a lot of people say it had nothing to do with drugs or anything like that. I beg to differ. I'd say there's definitely some impacts they had from the heavy drug use.
Yeah. There was that one YouTuber that was really big. I can't remember what his name was. The guy...
Yeah, of course, on the documentary.
Crazy Iris, yeah. And the, had all the tats. You probably crossed paths with him at some point.
Yeah, Rich?
Yeah, Rich, that's who it was, yeah. I mean, that's what everyone pointed the finger at first, right? Was just his massive amounts of steroid use. He was very open about it.
Yeah, I mean, he was open about that. There was a lot of illicit drugs, harder drugs involved too, which I'm sure didn't help his heart.
Definitely not.
There was an autopsy done on another young man that died, and his heart was massive, his liver was massive. Like those aren't good things. Having a gigantic heart is not a good thing. Having a liver that's that, those are not good things.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult. It'll be interesting to see where the industry goes from here with that sort of stuff. Especially now they're creating and manufacturing more different aspects like SARMs, right, that have gotten really popular. That's like, all right, we can take out all the negative side effects and just give you the stuff that you want. So if we're on that path, then where does it go next?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Eventually they'll be able to alter the myostatin gene, right? And then we could all just turn into freaks overnight. So
turn into that cow.
Well, that's starting to happen. They got the whole CRISPR technology. Did you hear about in China? I think maybe it was twins or something. They did something to their genes to make them immune to HIV. I don't know the full backstory to it.
I think I heard this as well.
Yeah, and the premise is, it's like, hey, okay, let's say they were destined to have HIV, and now you've changed it so they don't have HIV because of this one gene encoding sequence. Like, cool, awesome. But then the big uproar, one of the big uproars, the initial one, was that we don't know that the gene that you turned off, there are other genes that are responsible for HIV as well. So maybe, what if it's one of the other ones? There's still other pathways for it to go through. And then the final thing that came out very recently was that they found out that gene turning it off improves learning and memory inflammation in the brain.
Wow.
So maybe the Chinese are just trying to breed even smarter children.
Wow. Yeah.
But, I think that could be something down the road where it's just, hey, you can make a designer baby.
100%.
Yeah, maybe I want to have a blue-eyed, redhead kid.
Well, they
with
reckon
dark skin.
Yeah, they can pick all those things.
I want to have a black baby.
Yeah. No, it's pretty scary. But look, we're going to end up all dead because of artificial intelligence anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Jacked but dead.
Yeah.
With dark skin, black skin, blue eyes, dead.
I guess we should have probably given John these questions ahead of time, but we'll see how we go. we finish with 4 questions with all our guests. Eugene, if you want to cover for him in case he hits the pass button, you can.
They're very challenging.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me get ready. Let me get psyched up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one will be interesting because of how long you've been in the game. First question is, if you had an opportunity to sit down like this in a podcast and interview anyone that's alive today, who would you sit down and interview and why?
I narrowed it down when you said alive.
Yeah. We didn't want to open it up to every human ever born in the universe. So.
I would want to talk to Jesus. Let's see. In the fitness industry or on the planet?
On the planet.
Earth. Yeah, just Earth.
The planet?
It's flat, by the way.
So I'm an honest guy, and I'm going to be honest with you. The first place I started thinking about was female movie stars. I was like, which of the movie stars do I like?
Interesting.
Like Kate Beckinsale. I don't know. Kate Beckinsale stood me up. So she was supposed to be at a Comic-Con. And I paid extra money to be the VIP pervert to go get a picture. And so I went to the Comic-Con and she was not there and I was pissed. So Kate, if you're listening to this.
She's not.
You better shut for the next Comic-Con so I can get my picture with you and pretend that I'm famous.
So I'm curious now, if you had her in the podcast interview, what would you ask her in the interview? Would you...
Oh, God. It would be something with the vampires that she plays in the movies. What was it? Underworld, right? You guys seen Underworld, right?
Oh, that's who... Okay,
the girl in Underworld.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, I know who she is.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Her or maybe... okay, so the other girl was... And Nicolas Cage was the dude with the flaming skull, the Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
His girlfriend. What was her name? She's the Hispanic girl.
I'm not sure.
Was she the one from Fast and the Furious as well? No.
No, but that's Michelle Rodriguez. Not her, but the other girl. Anyways, she's a Hispanic lady and she is hot. Like that's who I would want to see.
There's like 100 hot movie chicks in this room.
That's what
This room would be full of beautiful women.
What questions would you ask them? I don't know.
I wouldn't say a word. Just have them packed in like sardines and just cool. It's a hot room.
I'd be like, hey, do you like calves?
My friend Eugene. Speaking of calves, definitely the smallest calves in the room, but how much of a component do you think calves is the most genetically like fixed muscle in the whole body in terms of how much it can grow? Like I'm just look at Kai Green, man. That guy knows how to build muscle, but he's got tiny calves.
Man, it's kind of hard to argue with that because you're on them so much because you're walking around so much. It's they're just tough and dense.
I've got a couple of like different opinions on it. Again, this is just complete bro science now. Is of course like the insertions. John's calves, no matter how big they get, will never look like mine.
Yeah, because they're up higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, simple as that. So you can never. That's probably like part of like the Kai Greens. They just have such high inserting calves. They will never ever look the way that mine would.
Yeah.
But muscle is muscle. It has to grow. The issue is exposing it to the right stimulus. And I think more importantly than actually just training the calves, there's two things there is the calves have got the Achilles tendon, which is probably the most important and robust tendon that absorbs a lot of forces. So if someone's doing a calf raise, even with a light weight, you put them, at least just their warm-up set, if you make them do a 5-second or a 10-second hold, they will notice considerably much more activation through the calves because the Achilles tendon takes a long time to deactivate in inverted commas because it has such a big potential because we're on it all day to absorb that elastic energy and then to recoil. So overcoming that is one part of proper training, and you will never see people doing a 5 to 10 second pause in that stretch position to get that stretch reflex completely inhibited. The other thing
bottom of the rep.
At the bottom of the rep, yeah. You're taking notes right now, yeah.
I know, bro. I need it.
I think the other thing that is complete airy-fairy Eugene bro science is blood flow. Not in terms of how much of a pump you can get down there, but the actual vascular network down from the feet and the calves. It's the most distal body part from your heart. Like it's the furthest away you can get from your upper body.
Yeah.
So the capillary networks there would be very, very intricate, very, very small, and prone to more damage. more than anything else. And then when you also compound that with the fact that we're in shoes and socks all the time, that's now creating less proprioception, less sensation overall. So it's not a far cry to say up here in the master control center in your brain's like, you know what? There's not a lot going down there. So maybe I'm just going to not even bother repairing that broken vascular structure. I'm not going to send as much stuff down there as far anymore. So now you have a few things going on: lack of sensation, lack of proprioception, lack of maybe blood flow, vascular supply, and also the elastic recoil from the Achilles that takes the grunt anyway. Now you have the perfect storm of, if you had that in your chest, you wouldn't grow your chest. If you had that in your biceps, you wouldn't grow your biceps. I think that's part of what's going on with the calves. And the only research I have to back that up with is when I start improving those things in people, their calves start growing. When I start having them working with the stretch, when I have them starting to work with improving sensation, proprioception through their feet, and when I have them looking at things like cardiovascular health and fitness and improving the vascular networks with different nutrients, like could be things like your B vitamins, your folic acid, and things like that, they start growing calves. They still won't look like mine because of the insertions, but they start growing the muscle.
Yeah, I mean, you could say all those things would apply to people that start getting really heavily into cycling, right? They fix all those things to a degree, Yeah. They start working their calves 5 or 6 hours a day, every single day. So they create, much more conditioning, from the brain down to the muscle.
I'll tell you a really interesting thing is I had a student in class last year. He was a previously type 2 diabetic to the point where like he was very heavily overweight. He still is, but he's lost like 100 kilos. But he's still fat. Anyway,
You're a hard man.
But he got to the point where he had peripheral neuropathy, nearly lost his foot. Like nearly like had to get it chopped off because that's where all the nerves down there and the blood supply just gets so dead. And he didn't lose the foot luckily, but he had no sensation there whatsoever. Like since that point, whenever it was, we did some work on him in terms of just very, very basic, that kind of like calf work and stuff and foot drills and some proprioception work on the soles of his feet. And this is like going a couple of years after he never felt his foot again. He's like, I can feel my muscles in my calves. I can feel things. I can feel blood pumping to my foot that he hadn't felt. And it was warm to touch now. I was like, this is so weird. But, you know, all fat guys have calves. So I can't really do an assessment on whether or not it's going to help him grow his calves or not.
They do have massive calves,
Do you think training your calves helps with Achilles tendon ruptures? We see a few. We saw one in the gym last year, and I think quite a few CrossFitters do, not loads, but we do see them occasionally, and no one ever trains their calves directly.
Yep.
Do you think it helps? Is that a yes?
It helps.
Is there a particular reason? Is that just like forcing blood flow into the area?
Blood flow for sure is one thing, blood flow perfusion, but also when you take the calves into those, when you're training the calves, you're causing a shortening through the plantar fascia, which also helps with co-contraction in the Achilles tendon. You are training the strength of the tendon. You're helping the stiffness of the tendon that you can't really get from much else.
Yeah, that's why gymnasts do so many calf raises to warm up.
Yes.
Like their warm up, like you and Rory did. Our other business partner did a gymnastics calf workout once, and I know you guys you hadn't trained calves directly in a while, and he decided for whatever reason to not do it to the floor.
It was from Gymnastics Bodies, like have you ever heard of Gymnastics Bodies? They have like Christopher Summers. It's it's just his normal routine you do for calves.
It's not even like this insane calf workout. It was like this is kind of the prep warm up thing that we do, and how many reps total? Under 200.
Yeah, it was like 100 to 200 reps of calf raises.
Yeah, just all different directions for the feet. But Raf did it to the floor. Roy decided to do it to a deficit. He had to call in sick for coaching 2 days in a row because the DOMs were so bad he couldn't walk. And that wouldn't have happened if all the training that we did was training our calves, right? If all the skipping and the jumping was actually working the calf, but it's not.
I'll tell you the interesting thing. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but like, when do you usually get sore? It's maybe not the day after, maybe 2 days after. But I've noticed personally with calves, you get sore 3 days later. It takes a little bit longer to really... I mean, for you probably just got annihilated. Like, But typically, like when we as bodybuilders would train them, where they've got some conditioning there, not the day after, not 2 days, it's usually a little bit longer than the typical 2-day DOMs. And I'm like, why the hell is that? And it's probably... I just think it's part of that whole distal relationship. And it takes time to rebuild those networks or to even get the signaling down there of damage or whatever else it may be. We don't really know what's causing DOMs in the first place.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to me.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
We'll need a whole follow-up show on calves.
We might have to. Yeah. We might have to. Second question.
I forgot we were doing that. That's the Kate Beckinsale section.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna look up who that girl is.
That's not the second question.
This is really driving me
This
nuts.
is on Pornhub.
Hot Latino girls. Second question is, what is something that you do every day and still do, no matter where you are in the world, that you feel like is essential to the success of your day?
I go out and have breakfast, and I get myself in the right frame of mind, and I'm in a great mood. It's not so much about the food, although that helps, right? But it's just the routine. It's just a habit that I have that I like that starts my day off right.
So when's the last time you missed breakfast?
Do you mean you go out and buy breakfast? You don't cook?
I like there's where Eugene and I are staying, there's a little coffee shop around the corner. I've had breakfast there every morning. And when I'm at home, I try to have breakfast most mornings too. I actually go somewhere and sit down at a table and order, and I just find that a great way to start my day. It's just something I love to do.
And you get there as early as possible, or you just whenever?
Just kind of whenever.
Yeah.
I mean, since I've been here, I've been on a little bit more of a schedule, which actually has been really cool. It's different at home because sometimes the kids keep us up late, sometimes I work late, whatever. But actually, it's been really cool here because I've been on much more of a schedule. But I just find that a great way to start my day.
And what's the menu has everything? What are you going for?
Usually 2 eggs and 2 pieces of toast.
That's
and
it.
coffee.
Simple.
And a coffee. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I post pictures of pancakes, so everybody assumes that's what I have every meal. But that's usually like once every week or two.
Okay.
The other days I'm eating 2 eggs and 2 pieces of toast. And then all the questions are, won't you eat more than that? 2 eggs, not enough protein. I'm like, look, man, I'm doing just fine.
Just send them back a photo of you on stage flexing. Yeah, built on 2 eggs a day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice. That was good. We haven't had that answer before. Third question is, what is something recently that you've changed your mind on that for a while you held as a strong belief of yours? And recently we put, say, in the last year or so.
Year or so. Whew. Let me think about this.
The last person that answered this in the studio almost broke down in tears. I found out later what it was about, but yeah.
I'm not going to break down in tears, but man, you know what? Look, this sounds corny. Maybe I can make you break down in tears.
Jesus.
I'm all about relationships, man, and I have in my mind where they're at as far as importance, and it's really high. But every year that goes by, I realize it's way more important than I thought it was. And the older I get, the more I appreciate social interaction and relationships. And the way I feel about it now is way more than I felt about it last year, and then that year was more than the year before. I feel like every year that goes by, I feel like that's such an important part of life for me personally, is these social connections and social relationships and I just feel like that. It just makes me happy, man, to have good relationships with people. And just, I don't mean like having a million best friends. I mean like Eugene and I have coffee at this shop. Wasn't it the Espresso Room?
Yeah.
So I'll give him some publicity here. The Espresso Room, what street is it on?
I don't know.
Is this the one in Chatswood?
No.
Oh no, that's Elbow Room.
So there's a guy there. His name is BG. He's a super dude. He's from Turkey. He used to work on cruise ships. He's been to Miami when he went to the United States. We have these great conversations in the morning. They have tremendous eggs and sourdough toast, which is cool. And the coffee in Australia is the best in the world.
100%.
The only thing is I'm kind of depressed because I'm going home tomorrow and I'm going to have to go back to the regular coffee. But that interaction, the way I start my day with him, feels awesome to me. Like I'm having a good interaction. Eugene's down there. That stuff is really important to me. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just something when you get older. You'll see what I mean. But the older I get, the more I realize that stuff is really what makes me personally really happy. Sometimes I take my one of my boys out to breakfast with me. He asks me every time, "Can I go to breakfast with you, Dad?" And my answer is always, "Only if you're ahead on your schoolwork." So sometimes he'll get ahead on schoolwork, and I'll say, okay, now you can. But if he's not, I'll say, no, you got your schoolwork to do. So, but anyways, these little things like going out in the morning and the relationships and like all that stuff is like super important to me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree a lot. It's, well, if you strip everything back, all we have is each other and all the other animals, but I mean, they're not as important. But in terms of just other, real relationships, definitely with humans for sure. Yeah. And it's just, I think when, it's so important because when someone you care about you've upset, it's the only thing you think about. It's like all the other problems in your life, you're like, fuck, they're nothing compared to I got to fix whatever's wrong with this person. And that's like, it can even just be a friend, right? It doesn't even have to be even that serious, but it just plays on your mind constantly until you fix it. And you just realize, or I realize personally, that they are so important. Having the important relationships all humming and all in good alignment is like so important for your mental health. Yeah, you just can't ignore those things.
That's like when you're at the top of Maslow's hierarchy, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when you're just, you're contributing to the world. You're like, it's just a great place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was even saying to Raph, like the podcast, having the new studio now and being able to interact with people more in person, it's just made the show so much more enjoyable. It's made it so much more real rather than always doing it through a computer screen. That's how it's had to be for a while, but now it feels so much more real, and the relationships we're making and the connections are just like so much more enjoyable. It just feels like it's a totally different beast as of this year.
Also, the problem with the thing is you can't see calves.
Yeah.
All you can see is their traps and head.
Yeah.
And like, you miss out. You miss out on this shit, bro.
You're missing out today.
I see what I'm missing now.
You're missing out today. Camera just cut out. So, final questions, 2 parts. First part is a book that you would recommend to people. I actually want you to answer this as well. I feel like you got some more books that we don't know yet. And then second part is like a quote that you like to stick to, a favorite quote of yours. Actually, we'll start this one with a quote, what you were saying before. I don't know who said it the other day, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was something to the effect of, a win is not a win unless it's shared with other people. Exactly what you were saying before. So you could have all the success in the world by yourself, but if you can't share it with anyone else, it doesn't feel like a win. That's how important people are.
Man, that's a tough one. Books, quotes.
I think the Gamburu Method 2.0 is a good ebook to start with.
I had an Aristotle quote the other day in my presentation. What was it? Excellence, it's from your habits. Like what you do daily, your habits is what lead is what lead to excellence.
Excellence is therefore not a something.
Well, yeah, excellence is not an act, it's a habit.
It's a habit.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. When I do these seminars, I always tell people, like I'll ask them, what are some of your goals? And if what your actions are on a daily basis don't get you closer to that goal, it's not a goal, it's a daydream. You're just daydreaming.
That's good.
That's a good point.
That's a good one. Fucking hell.
That's your own quote,
Yeah.
John Meadows.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
There you go. Put it down, man. Put it down. Put it on Instagram. Share it.
That was great.
Yeah. Write it on the wall.
I did have one quote that I'm not going to say I'm famous for, but I did say that donuts are a negative calorie food because I get so excited and happy when I eat them. I burn off more calories than I'm actually consuming.
The weight loss tool.
You get really, really sweaty and yeah.
That only works for you.
We need a book to move on here.
A book. I've got a few like books that I really think have shaped, like not from education perspective whatsoever, but I think are really good, important people books, like to teach you how to be a better person, or how to just have a certain outlook on life. It gives you gain perspective. Like I don't read books anymore to educate myself. Like I don't want to not to learn about the nasal nutrition thing or the latest training protocol or some scientific thing. I read very rarely on those topics anymore. Like maybe one book a month at most, which for me, when I read, a couple of books a week, it's not much. But I'm so much bigger on reading books to gain perspectives, to hear stories, like fiction or non-fiction, but to gain perspectives and to gain different outlooks on life. That's why I love biographies. So most people, I'm pretty sure I mentioned on the last time I was here, my favorite one is Kevin Hart's biography, where that really just pushed me to actually to work my ass off, where last year I was just touring so much. But to not repeat that, another book that I really enjoyed not necessarily enjoy, but more so for the message, and it was a big formative one for me, was To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, I think it is.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you studied back in high school,
Yeah,
To Kill
yeah.
a Mockingbird. But I love the message in that. Like, I didn't have to study it in high school, which is why I didn't have to study that book, which is why I think I enjoy it. When you have to read it in high school, you hate that book. But I love the message of putting yourself into other people's shoes and always trying to think about, like, be empathetic in that lens and try to understand other people's perspectives before you react, and having the time to think before you react. I mean, that's even, I think, there is a quote from another book. It's a bonus round. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, where he talks about your ability to compose yourself before you react. Like, there is a space before every, I don't know what the exact quote is, I'm going to butcher the fuck out of it, but every time you get some kind of thing happening to you, there's a space before your reaction. It's your ability to then choose the reaction that you're going to take and how you're going to respond in those circumstances. And I don't think people do that enough. They just react, and they don't think about themselves and take the time to be aware of what are they really responding to and how are they going to respond, and is it the best way to respond. There are a couple of the books that really stand out. I reread The Alchemist the other day. I read that a couple of times a year. Because I think that's a really important book to come back to.
Yeah, just to the response thing, I always think, like, this morning I scratched the fuck out of my car. And I was sitting with my coach, and he was more devastated than me. And I was like, man, if I get angry and upset, it doesn't change the outcome. Like, it's done now. Like, whether I'm happy, like, even being happy about it doesn't even change the outcome. Just not worrying about it doesn't make a difference. Like, it's done. It's done. You know what I mean?
You were overjoyed.
Sure. Yeah, I was stoked. I was aiming for that
Tell
curb.
him how we started our day today.
My car's broken right now.
We heard about it.
Yeah.
It's because guy wants AC at fucking 14 degrees Celsius.
He kicks out my battery.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing I tell people all the time, because I get so many people reacting to anything, to bad news or whatever. I always ask them, because they ask me how I have such a calm composure most of the time. I still react and get shitty all the time. I'm sure John does as well, every now and then.
Yeah.
But one thing that I always tell people is, when anything bad happens, or bad, like your car getting scratched or whatever, ask yourself, is it really going to matter in 5 years? Or 5 months, 5 days, 5 hours, 5 minutes? And usually you'll find there is very few things, like nothing, that really makes a difference 5 days from now, 5 months from now, 5 years from now. So why the hell should you worry about it now? Second, you make that distinction, you're like, why the hell am I worrying about it?
Yeah.
But the only thing that really does matter 5 years from now is relationships.
Yeah.
If we had a falling out, I'm gonna think about that in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
So I better think about it a lot now, and I better deal with it now.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't care at all about my car being broken.
Yeah.
It's it won't matter in 5 years. I won't think about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any books for us, John?
The last book that I read repeatedly was actually a business book. And I have multiple businesses, and one of them was really struggling. And I read a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willowink. I know I probably said his name wrong. He was a military guy from the U.S.
Navy SEAL, right?
Yeah. I really liked that book, and I liked the message. And it brought me back to, as the book says, ownership. Instead of placing the blame on people, it's like, well, you put that person in that position, so ultimately it's on me. It was, and then the stories in it are great too. The stories are great because they're real. They really happened. So I love the combination of his war stories and how they had to work together, and how if there was the slightest miscommunication, people would get killed. It's very serious. But I like the business message too. So I read that book. I really, really enjoyed it. And I don't particularly enjoy reading business books anymore. I definitely don't like reading these, what do we want to call them? These self-help, motivation book type things. I think most of them are full of crap. But I really liked that book by Jocko. I thought it was a really good book. Have you read that one?
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Yeah, I think I got the message after a few chapters, but equally more stories help reinforce a message, because you don't remember facts as much as you remember cool stories. Yeah.
Well, when we do seminars, it's like full of stories.
Yeah.
I love to tell stories.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think people get that. But I mean, there was some cool stories in there. Like, somebody would radio in their location, and he'd say, like, "Are you sure we're getting ready to pound that with rockets? Like, are you sure that's where you're at?"
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Yeah, just fire the rockets, hurry." And they're like, "Are you sure?" And then he's like, "Oh crap, we were getting ready to shoot our own people."
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Yeah. You sure, bro?
Are you sure? We're about to wipe everything out in that area. Obliterate it. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. It's a good book, Extreme Ownership by
Jocko Willink.
Jocko Willink. Awesome. So you mentioned you have a few businesses. Where can people find out about them? What you're doing? Instagram, YouTube, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so the Instagram and YouTube are both Mountain Dog 1.
I'm Mountain Dog 2.
He's Mountain Dog 2, yeah. Actually, my Skype.
Mountain's baby dog.
Mountain Pup.
Mountain Pup.
And my website is mountaindogdiet.com. That's where I have my member website, and that's where we sell training programs and coaching and all that, and ebooks and all that fun stuff. But that's where you can reach me. Oh, I also have a cell phone app that's pretty badass. It's in the Apple Store, and it's also in, the Google Play Store for Android. Yep. It's called Mountain Dog Diet, and it is 9 or 10 years worth of information I've collected for the member website. That's actually on my website, and has a Q&A in it where people can send questions directly to me.
Oh, cool.
I've only had, it's pretty new. It took us 9 months to load all the data onto it because there's so much information. But we've only had one person quit their subscription since it started. And if you're in a subscription-based business, that's pretty daggone impressive.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, check it out.
Nice. Awesome. And Eugene?
Easiest place to find me will be Instagram on Coach Eugene Teo. I do have my website, Gambaru Method, which is just a collection of all of my content. Everything that's a lot more easy. I can go much deeper into it than I can on Instagram, because I get literally dozens of messages a day saying, "Hey, coach, can you help me with my lower back?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can." But then the issue was I have to scroll back pages on my Instagram. So no, go onto my website now. You'll find everything I talk about the lower back or the feet or whatever other issues it could be, all in there. And then I'll put on my workshop content on there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Our some of our coaches have a subscription, and
why don't you have a subscription?
Yeah, because I just use theirs. It's expensive. You can do that. And so I keep telling them that I haven't seen Eugene for a while, but I've heard him nearly every single day because they're lying in the office and they're cranking up. Like, guys, headphones. Can't listen to this guy. I need to get work done.
Your stuff is so annoying. The gym was like, "Oh, where's that from?" "Oh, it's Eugene." And all of a sudden, I can't tell them what to do anymore. So I don't listen to Eugene.
Yeah. No, so it's been very good. Yeah, we recommend it. So Ganbaru. Yeah.
Yes. Method.
Method.com. Yeah, fantastic. All right, gentlemen, thank you for being on in the new studio. Appreciate it. It was nice to have you, John. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, boys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Woo.